Morning, everyone. Look, I have a homemade gavel. The 2020 annual meeting of the membership of the National Association of Concessionaires is hereby called to order. Just 15 months ago, we celebrated the organization's 75th anniversary with great fanfare and hope for the future. We certainly were unaware and unprepared for just a year later what condition our industry, our members, and our association would find ourselves in. The last 8 months have certainly been challenging, but we forge forward with the hope and understanding that planning and exceptional work will get us all through this once-in-a-century summons to action. This being our first ever digital annual meeting, we don't have much of a precedent to compare, but we will conduct this meeting and will provide access to all voting members as if we were in a hotel ballroom, anticipating lunch on the table with Tim Farah's array of candy as a centerpiece for all to enjoy. I do want to personally thank the membership, board of directors, the executive committee, and the NAC staff for some of our best work over the last few months as we continue to provide pertinent and beneficial information and engage all during these difficult times. The value of this organization has been illustrated in droves since March, and much of that is due to the efforts of the NAC membership. Your kind words of support will certainly be taken into account as we journey into a tenable future. An assessment of the membership indicates there is a quorum to conduct all business that comes before us this morning. If those present would like to be heard, you are asked to use the chat icon and you'll be provided access to the conversation. All those present who may not be NAC members are welcome to remain on the call as observers during this official meeting, but are requested not to participate in the voting. At this time, it is usual procedure to introduce the head table. We will forego that this year with the understanding that much appreciation must be conveyed to the NAC Executive Committee. The leadership provided from these outstanding individuals during these unprecedented times is much appreciated by all. The NAC Executive Committee includes Andrew Frieders, Denise DeZuter, Brian McMillan, Tim Farha, Kathy Gilman, George Raub, and Bill LeClair.
The minutes of the 2019 annual membership meeting held on August 1st, 2019 at the Fairmont Hotel in Chicago are available to be presented. With the minutes previously distributed, we will suspend the reading of the minutes at this time. Chris, if you could put up the poll, please vote via the poll option to approve the minutes of the 2019 annual membership meeting. The minutes of the 2019 annual membership meeting stands approved. Thank you all. Looks like it's the only election that's been happening in the last week or so that's unanimous. So thank you again.
Needless to say, it has been a trying year for our exhibitor friends and their representatives at NATO. We certainly congratulate NATO for the Herculean effort they have committed to in positioning the industry as a safe and family-friendly environment, while also supporting their members during these very troubling times. We're happy to have John Fithian from NATO with us today to highlight some of those efforts and hopefully provide us with some encouraging insights. John?
Thank you, Adam. Hi, everybody. I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C., a city that is going through a tumultuous time right now. As someone who's been active in our federal government since I was a kid, I got to tell you, I don't know if I've seen a crazier time. And it's crazy not just because of the politics of our country, but it's crazy because of what this pandemic has done to the country, the world, and obviously specifically to our shared industry of movie theaters and the wonderful concessions that you all provide that we sell there. You know, back on, I guess it was March 8th, I went up to New York for the premiere of Quiet Place 2, sat down with the leaders of Paramount Studios to have a meeting. And then on about March 11th, we had a NATO executive board conference call, and Mookie Greidinger, the CEO of Cineworld, said, "Hey folks, this virus thing in Europe is pretty bad, and we're all about to shut down, and you guys are all about to shut down." Some of the American CEOs pushed back and said, no, it's not that big of a deal. And Mookie said, it's coming. I guess the next day on about March 12th, I made my last business trip. All of our executive team flew to Kansas City, and we sat down with the AMC executive team. And little do we know at that time, but one of our senior executives who came from our Los Angeles office already had the damn virus. This was March 12th. And it was already spreading in California in February, which is when they contracted it and didn't even know what it was, right? The entire family got the flu. Boy, this is really bad, but whatever. It's just a case of the flu. That was the beginning for us of our intersection with this incredible virus. And you all know what then happened in mid-March. The movie theater industry in America shut down entirely for the first time in over 110 years of its history. And think about that. We have operated through wars. We've operated through natural disasters. We've had little blips here and there where we shut down for a day or two. But this is the first time in the history of this industry that we have been hit this hard and shut down this long. That was mid-March. So then we started preparing for what was going to be a shutdown period of undetermined length. And we still are fighting with how long this tunnel is. Even though we're currently allowed to be open in 49 states, or at least most parts of 49 states, the business obviously has not come back yet. And there are two things that are necessary for the business to come back. And one is a feeling of safety for people to come out to cinemas and feel like it's safe to do so. And the other is fantastic big new movies. And we're having difficulty with both of those key issues, right? On the safety issue, I'll tackle that first. We sat down over the course of several months with leading epidemiologists and created a program called CinemaSafe. If you haven't seen it, please go to cinemasafe.org. It's a really great set of protocols. Over 400 of our member companies that operate motion picture theaters in the US have implemented these protocols. They've been backed by all kinds of epidemiologists. I actually talked to Dr. Fauci about our protocols, and he said that they are very consistent with what he has been recommending. So we have a terrific set of protocols on how to operate safely. We've shared these with our members around the world. In fact, 2 countries in Southeast Asia adopted them as their country's protocols because they liked what we had put together. And it remains the case that it is very safe to go to movie theaters now. We haven't had a single case of a transmission or an outbreak at a movie theater anywhere in the world. I had 2 epidemiologists scan all the literature and found no reports. And that's because going to a movie theater is actually much safer than going to a bar or going to a restaurant or even going to church. And the reason for that is that people come, they follow our protocols, they're socially distanced in how they're spaced from each other in their groups. People are wearing masks except when they're eating your delicious concessions. And they're not talking or singing or exercising. They're sitting there watching a movie on the big screen in front of them, sedentary, right? And all the science that we have studied shows that when people are sedentary, not breathing heavy, not talking or singing, they're not transmitting the virus if they have it. And yet at bars, even at restaurants, at churches where choirs are singing, at gatherings in people's homes that are mixing multiple families and multiple groups, that's where the virus is spreading. So we have tried to educate our public officials at the federal, the state, and the local level about these protocols, about the safety of operating cinemas. We've given tours of cinemas to local politicians to show them. We've promoted CinemaSafe very, very widely in the media, and we're getting there. And over half the people in this country now know that it's safe to go to cinemas. So what about that other problem? Movies. We thought when the shutdown started, we'd be back up by July. And the movie slate looked pretty good in July. And so we figured it'd be a couple month shutdown. And then that moved to August. And then it moved to September. And Tenet finally came out in September. And Tenet worked internationally, made what, $350 million or so. didn't work so well in the US. Didn't work so well in the US because our country did not tackle this virus the way other countries did. Our country still isn't tackling this virus the way other countries have. And so the film slate just keeps moving. And we've had one significant release in Tenet. We've had a bunch of smaller movies come out that we've done some okay business with, you know, but as the exhibitors on this board, Larry was just talking with us earlier about the things that they're trying to do to rent out their auditoriums and do gaming and have private parties. And exhibitors are creative, and they're scratching to find ways to bring people to the cinemas and make revenues any way they possibly can. Nonetheless, the revenues have been crushed. We surveyed our members and found that 90% of them have suffered more than a 75% revenue loss in the year 2020 compared to 2019. 2019 was a record-breaking year. We sold $42 billion worth of tickets globally in the cinema industry, over 11 billion here in the United States. We were on a roll, a thriving industry, selling tons of popcorn and soda. And then we came crashing into this pandemic and shut down entirely, and that just destroyed our revenue base. So we need new films, and we're trying to hold on to December and Wonder Woman on Christmas. But the virus is roaring back. And what you're seeing now in Europe is most major markets in Europe have closed everything outside the home for a time period. They hope to have it back up by Christmas, but we'll see. In the US, policymakers are responding a little bit differently. We're seeing curfews, we're seeing restrictions on food and beverage service, but we're not yet seeing massive reclosures. El Paso tried to do a reclosure, just got thrown out in court. A couple cities in California just shut down again based on Governor Newsom's orders there about the levels of transmission that allow us to operate or not. But as of today, we haven't seen massive reclosures in the US. That may change. That may change because the virus numbers are soaring. And so when the Warner Brothers of the world are looking at their release dates and everybody else is looking at their release dates, they're watching these numbers really closely. I don't know if Wonder Woman holds, but my guess is we don't return to substantial business until April. And, you know, we'll do everything we can to make some money between now and then, but our members are encountering a very significant liquidity crunch because of the lack of big new movies, and because people don't feel safe coming out, even though we've made it a very safe environment. So what are we doing to try to get our members through that? We are lobbying like crazy in Congress and in states across the country for relief packages to get liquidity to theater owners to tide them over. We know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. We know that there will be very strong business once we're back up with people feeling safe and new movies. And why do we know this? Because we're looking at China and Japan. In China and Japan, ticket sales are as high as they have ever been because the virus numbers are low and because they have their own local product. There's an anime picture in Japan that by 50% exceeded the biggest opening in the history of theatrical business in Japan. In China, there have been 4 or 5 gigantic movies that have made more money than any movies ever before in China. So we know that when people feel safe, and when they got new movies, this business will be incredibly strong. So I'm so optimistic about what it's like at the end of the tunnel. People are fed up with being stuck in their homes. They want to get out. They want to have a good time. They want to enjoy your food and beverage. They want to watch our movies. And they're going to come back in droves when it's safe to do so and when we have the titles. The challenge is getting them there. Okay, so I've gone on for a while. I'll close with this. What we are doing right now in Congress and the states is fundamentally important to saving cinemas until we get to the end of that tunnel. And we need your help. Go to saveyourcinema.com. That's saveyourcinema.com and fire off some letters to Congress. There's a program that we are lobbying for right now called the Save Our Stages Act that would do a $15 billion grant program for movie theaters, live stages, and small concert venues. Not loans, grants to get us to the other side of this pandemic. We're also lobbying the states. We've got 8 states now with specific grant programs to movie theaters and more coming online. And so whatever you can do to get active, we are trying really hard to get some liquidity into these companies so we can get them to the other side. Because if we don't, about 69% of our companies are either going to go bankrupt or close entirely by the end of January. We're optimistic about the legislative program. We got a bunch of great allies. It's fun to watch Hollywood step up to support this industry. I mean, I got people making calls like Robert De Niro and Clint Eastwood, and people are helping try to get support for saving cinemas because it's a cultural institution that's really important to the country and the world. I will end my filibuster there and just say thank you to our friends at NAC. You have been great partners throughout the history of our business. You know how important food and beverage has been to the growth of our business in the last few years. It's one of the biggest bright spots of the business, and it will be at the end of that tunnel when we're back up and running again. We just got to get to the end of the tunnel. So have a good rest of your meeting, and thanks for having me on, guys. It was a pleasure to join you all.
Thank you, John. I know that you know that membership and leadership of NAC are here to provide support and assistance in any way possible to the future efforts of NATO. Hey, Chris, before we go any further, I'm getting some emails that people aren't able to get into the meeting, so I don't know if you can check on that or what. But there may be some issues. I've had the opportunity to have Joel Rice speak at a variety of NAC programs over the years. Fisher-Phillips is a member of NAC and has assisted us in our government relations efforts, as well as keeping our members informed on the changing landscape of regulations and legislation. We are pleased to have Joel join us today to address the new legal concerns we all should have during these COVID-19 times. Please join me in welcoming Joel Rice of Fisher-Phillips, LLP.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. You know, I'll kind of echo what John said, that we're all living the ancient curse, may you live in interesting times. And these are indeed interesting times, to say the least. I'm here to talk about some recent legal developments, especially as they relate to labor and employment law. We're going to start with COVID-19. Next slide. Yeah, so the first slide here talks about some things that have actually been in effect for a while. These are the emergency leave laws that were passed by Congress back in the spring. One thing to note, and I'm going to talk about these laws in a little more detail, but one thing to note is they're only effective through the end of the year, and it's going to be interesting to see whether those emergency paid leave laws get extended. Obviously, things are bogged down in Congress right now, and there's a lot of infighting, and you know, who knows what's going to come out of this legislatively. But I think given the recent extreme surge in infection and increase in hospitalizations, et cetera, I think it's reasonable to assume that some of these emergency leave laws are going to be extended. Next slide. And let me add, before I get to this next slide, or before I talk about this next slide, there are some state and local governments that have passed their own emergency paid leave laws. And certainly if you're in those jurisdictions, places like California, you should certainly be paying attention to the requirements of your localities. So there's really basically two forms of federal emergency leave for employees. This first one is the emergency paid sick leave law. And you can see that this has a number of different qualifying criteria for being able to seek leave. You know, one of these, I spoke on this in August to the membership, and, you know, that government quarantine or isolation thing wasn't really too applicable back in August. But as John alluded to, you know, we could be seeing a resurgence of these government shutdowns. So that's certainly something that could come into play again this winter. Next slide. Under the emergency paid sick leave law, the payment is not full replacement for somebody's pay or salary. It's kind of it's capped. It's on a percentage basis depending upon the reason. You know, I won't speak too much to the details of that given my limited time, but certainly pay attention to these caps and the limitations. Of course, you're always free to be more generous, with the amount that you're paying on a daily basis. These are just the minimum baselines. Next slide. And then in addition to the emergency paid sick leave law, there's also federal emergency family and medical leave law. And let me back up and say that both of these laws only apply to smaller employers, but smaller is, you know, reasonably large. It's anybody below 500 employees qualifies as a smaller employer. So it does apply to quite a broad swath of the workforce. So emergency family and medical leave mirrors what's already out there with the family and medical leave law, which probably most of you are familiar with if you're employers. The difference is that this leave is paid rather than unpaid, or at least it's paid after a qualifying period. So it does impose some additional requirements. But note that this one only comes into play if someone is caring for their child when the school or childcare is closed. So it's a pretty narrow qualifying reason. But obviously, again, we're now during the school season. The virus is kind of raging in various parts of the country. So this, again, is something that is probably going to see a resurgence in application just because of what's happening out there in the world. So certainly be aware of that. Next slide. And so I think we can skip this slide, Chris. So if you want to move to the next one, that would be great. The other thing to be aware of, and I've certainly experienced this in counseling employers, is there's a lot of laws out there, both federal, state, and local, that prohibit retaliation against people who seek leave due to COVID. So just be aware that you could sometimes face much greater exposure to penalty, wage claims, etc., from people who claim that they were punished or singled out for seeking to avail themselves of the benefits of these laws. I'll cite Chicago as an example. It has very strict penalties for retaliating against people who have sought leave due to COVID. So just be aware of that. I've had clients that had people that sought leave, and maybe they had a dispute with the person over whether it applied. And then what often happens in the workplace is many times the people who are most aggressive about seeking time off are also the problem employees, unfortunately. And then you've got a situation where the employer may want to terminate this person for unrelated reasons. You just have to tread carefully. If there is a legitimate business reason to terminate someone, you can certainly do so, but you need to make sure you have your ducks in a row, that the issues are well documented, because if that person has sought COVID-related leave, you can be pretty assured they're going to try to tie a string between what they did and whatever action you take against them. Next slide. So this next slide's a little bit of a misnomer. Part of it is working from home, and part of it is just issues that generally apply to COVID and the workforce. The first part of the slide, wage and hour issues, that does apply to working from home. This is mostly applicable to non-exempt employees, employees who are paid by the hour and are eligible for minimum wage and overtime. The main thing to be careful of here is, obviously, when someone is working from home, it's harder to track their time. There's no time clock. How are you tracking the time to make sure that you're paying for all time that is worked? Be aware, in this or any context, the burden is on the employer to prove that the person only worked X amount of time. It's really not the burden on the employee. So I really urge you to have good systems in place for how you track time for anybody that is working remotely. And there's lots of good software that is available to track time. You should have good procedures in place for people to report their time or to report that they were shorted on time. Good procedures for people to sign off that they've been paid for all hours worked. It's really good to play some defense here, because it's much easier for someone to claim that they were working extra hours when they're working remotely, because it's harder for you to verify that. So just be aware of that issue. It's kind of maybe uniquely applicable now in the COVID era. Face masks, you know, employers are certainly entitled to require people to wear face masks when they're at work. The EEOC has said that is perfectly acceptable. And there could be some rare medical exceptions, but I really stress the fact that those should be rare for someone to have a medical exception from a requirement that they wear a mask. As far as accommodations go, this is a tricky one too, and it's come up for a lot of times in my practice. Someone that has a fear of COVID, or they have comorbidities, they have medical conditions, diabetes, other conditions that make them at extra risk, but maybe their work cannot be performed remotely. They really need to be at the work site. Really, these are issues that have to be addressed the way you would address any other disability law issue. You need to engage in what's called the interactive process. You need to interact with the person. You need to find out what's their situation medically. Is there a legitimate medical reason for them not to be able to work at the work site? And often you can do things to make the work site safer. Physical distancing, barriers, requiring people to wear masks. There are all kinds of ways you can restructure the workplace to make it easier for someone to work, even if they may have some fear or maybe some comorbidities. Of course, there could be situations where someone is just so susceptible and so sick otherwise that you may just have to give them some type of leave accommodation. Next slide. There's a lot of pending federal legislation and negotiation over extension of unemployment insurance, employer liability shields, you know, for things like employees who contract COVID at the work site, tax credits, stimulus payments. The stimulus in particular is much in the news right now. Obviously, all of this is still being bargained over, worked, you know, negotiated. You know, in many levels, this stuff is kind of stuck in the mud right now. So we will see how much legislation emerges out of Congress. Next slide. The other interesting development recently, and I don't actually have the pinpoint date on this, but the Small Business Administration has sent out a questionnaire that employers need to fill out who received the Paycheck Protection Program loans. And obviously the expectation was that if you, you know, adhered to the requirements, that you would ultimately be able to apply for loan forgiveness. So it would convert from a loan to a grant. This recent questionnaire has a number of probing questions on it that suggest that the hurdle to get loan forgiveness may be a little higher than many people thought. And you'll also notice that there's a very stringent deadline to complete that questionnaire. So just something to be aware of if you are a recipient of a PPP loan, make sure you're aware of the requirements for loan forgiveness. Next slide. Vaccines. So obviously we are all hopeful that there will be ultimately a COVID vaccine that's safe and broadly available. There's been some obviously good news recently about a Pfizer vaccine and perhaps some other vaccines that are kind of well along in that process. At this point, it's kind of hard to know exactly how that'll impact the workplace. Probably best to look at the CDC guidance for flu shots, which could provide a pretty good analogy for how COVID vaccines will be treated. You know, at this point, you know, this slide relates to the flu vaccine. You know, there are some people, for example, with the flu vaccine who may have a medical reason why they can't get it. I think the flu vaccine is suspended in a kind of egg-based medium, and some people are allergic to the eggs. So there are some rare circumstances where people have a medical reason why they can't get the flu vaccine. And of course, there are some religious sects that have beliefs about modern medicine and things of that nature. And so you could have some people who assert a religious reason for not being vaccinated, and that has applied to the flu, and presumably you'll have those same objections to COVID, in addition to, of course, the extreme politicization, say that 10 times, that has accompanied the whole COVID situation. Next slide. And, you know, in terms of protecting the workplace, I mean, obviously vaccines are just one aspect of it. Part of keeping everyone safe is just adhering to OSHA guidance on how to make the workplace safe, whether it's physical distancing, barriers, plexiglass, other types of barriers between work sites or between employees, you know, just cleaning the workplace regularly, et cetera. But vaccines can be part of that, and certainly, you know, that hopefully will be part of the tool. You know, let's turn to the next slide when we talk about mandating vaccines. So, you know, this slide says, may they require, should they require? You know, at this juncture, you know, I would say that COVID vaccination should be treated the same as flu vaccines. Most employers encourage their workforce to get a flu vaccine. I think at this point, absent some legislation that would require it, I think the same approach should apply to a COVID vaccine. It should be encouraged once everyone is aware of a safe and widely available vaccine. Should you require it? You know, again, I would say, should you encourage it? Yes, if the science supports the COVID vaccine, you should strongly encourage your workforce to be vaccinated. Next slide. We're going to kind of move on from COVID. I know I only have about 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to blast through this stuff. The next slide deals with training. I think the bullets on this slide are pretty self-explanatory. There is a movement of many states to require that every employer provide annual training on EEO-related issues and sexual harassment training. The slide indicates the states where this is currently required, and I think you're going to see many other states require it. What I would say is, if you're doing training anyway, just make sure that you jump through the hoops to comply with the annual training requirements, which is probably going to require you to document that you gave the training, have a record of attendees, et cetera. You might as well get, you know, kill two birds with one stone. If you're doing the training anyway, make sure you're complying with any state requirement that you conduct annual training. Next slide. This is another just recent development that could apply to employment, and some of you, you know, may be impacted by this. There are a number of states that are now protecting certain natural hairstyles from people from being discriminated from wearing their hair in a natural hairstyle. You'll see the slide here indicates several states have laws protecting this. Many, many other states are considering it. You know, just be aware of it. I think this could come up in connection with dress codes or appearance requirements in the workplace. Just be aware that any dress code or appearance requirement that relates to your hair could be impinged upon by this legislation. So just be kind of sensitive to that with respect to those types of appearance standards. Next slide. Another trend in states is to have state paid sick leave laws. You'll see, again, a number of states now have mandates for paid sick leave. And I would add, a number of local jurisdictions require it. Chicago is an example. It imposes a paid sick leave law. If you're in one of these states, a lot of these laws are recent. Some of them look like, you know, they may be applicable in January of next year. So just be aware that this is definitely the wave of the future, is to have state level mandates for paid sick leave. Next slide. So I put a big asterisk on this next slide, what is on the horizon with regard to the election, just because of all the turmoil surrounding the election. As we move to the next slide, we are assuming that it's highly likely that Joe Biden will be the next president. And obviously the Biden administration is likely to have very different legislative and agency emphases than the Trump administration. Some of these are, not going to be achievable without the cooperation of Congress. So some of these are more aspirational unless Congress is, unless the votes are there in Congress. For example, raising the federal minimum wage would not, be achievable by executive order or agency emphasis. But, cracking down on independent contractors could be done at the federal agency level. And that, of course, is subject to the political winds. So be careful of classifying people as independent contractors. Make sure that's very buttoned down. At the agency level, they could increase the salary basis level for someone to be exempt from the overtime requirements. That can be done by the Department of Labor, and that's very much subject to the political winds. So national paid leave laws, that would require the cooperation of Congress. So don't know where that's going to stand. May be interesting. A lot of people have gotten a taste of these federal paid leaves due to COVID, and there could be political support for expanding that and making it permanent. So remains to be seen. But certainly this is an ambitious agenda, some of which would require the cooperation of Congress, but other parts of it could be achieved either by executive order or by agency rulemaking. So certainly we can expect there will be some changes in the direction of liberalization of certain laws, imposing additional requirements on employers, but a lot of this obviously remains to be seen. Next slide. And I think that covers everything. It's been a pleasure to speak to these developments this morning. If anybody had questions, certainly I'm happy to take them later. I don't think it would be part of today's agenda, but certainly feel free to call or email me if you do have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. We look forward to continuing to work with you in the future as we all make our way through this pandemic and beyond.
Thank you.
Education has been the backbone of NAC since 1944. Thanks to icons like Mickey Warner and Shelley Feldman, NAC has been held in high esteem all these years for our educational prowess. Our exceptional education reputation continues under our remarkable Director of Education, Larry Etter, who will take this opportunity to share his 2020 stories in regard to new and old techniques to keep the membership engaged. Larry?
Hello, Adam. And as you can see, we got weather here in Memphis, Tennessee, so we love sunshine. Since our last meeting in Chicago, NAC has had a number of CCM certifications. The first was held in August of 2019 in Red Deer, Canada. For those of you that are not familiar with Red Deer, it's about 60 kilometers north of Calgary, and was hosted and sort of presented by Sheila Parisian, who was an NAC regional vice president in years past. In 2019, the fall semester at the University of Memphis, we conducted 7 more CCM individuals. And then in 2020, we entered into a new agreement with University of Memphis that allowed a new perspective on participation with colleges and universities. I'll describe it like this. The Kemmons Wilson Culinary School creates what they call a marketplace, which allows for community service and community classes. They enlisted NAC to be a part of that, so that anyone that attends this particular CCM class or certification can earn as much as 3 hours of college credits. The other advantage to participating in this kind of a program, it created a significant discount so that individuals, instead of paying a $675 fee for the CCM class and certification, they could do it for $475. And I think the timing couldn't have been more apropos, because as you know, as we got into the spring and with the COVID pandemic, dollars for education and continuing education became strapped. As it turns out, what I want to convey to the membership is that should you take the class under the marketplace at the culinary school, you would, for all intents and purposes, if you wanted to go back to school to finish a degree or even further your education, the CCM class and its certification then would allow you to pick up 3 credit hours at that particular university. I have to give a little caveat. It's not 100% across the United States, but it's nearly 99% of all universities are trying to get individuals to come back and finish their degrees, and they're offering this kind of incentive. What does that mean? If you take the CCM class through the marketplace at $475 and you receive the 3 hours credit at the university you attend, typically right now, it's about $1,200 per hour to take a class at a university. Some are more, for sure. But if you do the math, typically you could save as much as $3,600 if you wanted to go back to school. So what universities are finding is that a significant number of people are dropping out after their sophomore year. They lack money, they lack time, they're trying to support their family. So this particular piece that NAC has added is really a nice way to keep people engaged, not only continuing their certification in the concession recreational food service industry, but it allows them to support the consideration of going back and finishing their degree. So having said that, in the spring, we had 7 individuals that actually participated in the CCM class through Marketplace. In 2020, NAC had engaged in the regional seminar series. We developed a program called Laboring in a Multi-Generational Workforce. That program was to be delivered in Anaheim, California in March, and at the last minute we had to cancel that due to COVID. But since the program had already been written, I enlisted some assistance, and we actually put together a video presentation of the 3 hours plus. Chris Damon has done a great job taking that particular video presentation, and we've broken it down into 4 about 40-minute segments podcast, which we are now offering free of charge. If you're an NAC member, you just go online and you can participate and see those podcasts. In retrospect, I think you need to see all 4 of the podcast. As I discussed with Dan and Chris, the opening podcast of about 35 minutes is, for lack of better terms, a little bit boring because it's stuff that you probably already know, but you have to have a foundation to understand where we started and how the 5 different generations are now working together and what they're looking for. It's amazing that we did that back in March, and now having gone through the steps of the pandemic and what we see employees really want, it's very similar. As a matter of fact, in the opening podcast, we talk about the baby boomers or the silent generation. The silent generation literally went through the Depression. Baby boomers went through World War II. And so there are a lot of similarities that we talked about that are now coming true in today's age. Our presentation that we were going to do at CinemaCon was canceled. We have given some spoiler alerts. Dr. Palakirthi and I were looking into why individuals choose movie theaters. Why do they go to sporting events? And so the concept of third-party gathering places was of interest to us. We did not expect to find the results that we did. We expected people to say that they like to go to Starbucks to meet their friends and so forth and so on. As it turns out, movie theaters are the #1 location for third-party meeting places. And in as much as we wanted to deliver that message, it didn't seem appropriate in April to bring that to light as people were being told to stay home. So we do have that opportunity that I expect will present in 2021. Other than that, I want to say a very special thank you to the sponsors. These are tough times. We were very fortunate to have funding for the regional seminar series in advance. I think we've done a really good job giving the sponsors feedback, specifically on the podcast. Chris has done a great job reminding everyone who those sponsors are. And so I want to send out a big thank you. But more importantly, I think in closing, I want to say that this is kind of an example of the forward thinking that the NAC board has. Some 4 years ago, Denise DeSuter and Shelley Gertz Olson had this idea that we should be doing online training. And in as much as I didn't object to that, I do think that students like to participate face-to-face. But if we had not tracked on the online type of participation and presentations that we have done, we would be stuck. So as I look back on our last membership meeting, we've had over 35 people online take the CCM class. Going forward, Chris and I have already started working on producing the ECM class as an online option as well, because we are getting a number of requests on when are you going to have your next ECM class. And that particular program will be released probably in the spring of 2021. So there's a lot going on. We're very fortunate to have sponsors that support NAC education. And again, I think that we were very insightful to start creating the online CCM class a few years ago. With that, Adam, that's what you have.
Thank you, Larry, for everything that you do for the NAC. Excited now to have the opportunity to present Bill LeClair with the Bert Nathan Award. Personally, I'm very proud to give this award to Bill because back in 1998, when I started in this industry, National Amusements and the F&B team there that included Bill and Pat Michelizzi was the first theater group that I was ever given responsibility for. So it's nice to be able to do this for Bill. Bill has dedicated more than half his life to the motion picture industry, combined with a passion for innovation in food and beverage. Bill has truly helped pioneer the transformation of the cinema model, not only for National Amusements, but also for the industry as a whole. He's not just adapted, but has risen to the challenge and driven innovative concepts and new offerings to enhance the customer's F&B experience. Bill LeClair's 40-year history with National Amusements Showcase Cinemas began in 1977 when he joined the company as an usher. During his many years of service, he's performed various roles, including part-time manager, union projectionist, and as a theater manager in the Boston DMA, where he helped open many new buildings. Sorry. In 1989, LeClair joined the operations department as director, overseeing more than 100 indoor theater locations, drive-in, and flea markets. He was instrumental in deploying National's first computerized ticketing system and creating a series of training videos used circuit-wide. In 1997, he joined the rapidly expanding food and beverage team to help develop National Amusements' alternative and luxury dining options, including in-seat dining and alcohol service. Leading a small team, LeClair helped transform traditional concessions fare at several of National Amusements locations into some of the most elevated food and beverage experience in the industry. When the theater circuit acquired UCI Cinemas in Brazil in 2005, he developed programs to expand its food offerings and help grow the circuit from 10 to over 20 cinemas in a period of a few years. Today, as Senior Vice President of Global Food and Beverage, LeClair oversees the operations of all food and beverage business in 4 countries, representing more than 915 screens. He recently played a key role in the conversion to Coca-Cola in the US and UK, and led the transition to the first Coca-Cola freestyle theaters in the UK. LeClair can often be found working on a diverse range of projects focused on maximizing guest dining experience in the US, United Kingdom, Brazil, and Argentina. A graduate of Westfield State University, where he earned a BA in psychology, LeClair calls Massachusetts home. LeClair became a member of NAC in 2009. He has served on the board of directors for 7 years and is the current vice president of the executive committee. During this time, he has also served on the Expo, Government Relations, Silent Auction Committees, and the annual Kindness Initiative. In October of 2019, LeClair received the Show East Dan Fellman Showy Award presented to an industry member in honor of their achievements, accomplishments, dedication, and longevity in the industry. It's my honor and privilege to finally present the 2020 Bert Nathan Award to Bill LeClair of National Amusements. Bill?
Thanks, Adam. And what a true honor it is to receive this prestigious award. To be recognized by the concession industry, the industry that I focused my career on, really means a lot to me. You know, as I read over the list of previous recipients of this award, and what they've accomplished for our industry, it astonishes me to even think that my name would be on that same list. This award really has given me some time to look back on my career and reflect on how lucky I have been. I have had the opportunity to work with so many great and wonderful people from all over the world. Many of them have given me so many opportunities. It's amazing, and to all of these people I say thank you for taking a risk and giving me a chance. It's been a true pleasure to work for and serve our great movie-going patrons, to partner with awesome vendors, and even to work and know our competitors. I've made great friends along the way. It's truly an honor to work with so many great professionals that make up NAC. You know, we had a great podcast this week on relationships of NAC. And I think Teresa and her group did an outstanding job in reflecting what NAC is really about. So hats off to them. I think they did a great job. You know, I don't believe there's another organization that has more hardworking, dedicated, and caring people than the folks that make up our organization. Therefore, I really want to say thank you to all NAC members for this award. I also want to say a big thank you to my entire National Amusements family. From Sherry Redstone to our home office team, field personnel, theater managers, and front of house staff. It is an honor every day to work with the finest, most professional, hardworking, dedicated people in the industry. In addition, a special shout out to my F&B team in the US and internationally. What can I say, but you guys are the best. I so value you all and appreciate how good you make me look every day. Thank you. Lastly, to my kids who aren't here today because they're all working, which is a good thing, by the way. I say thank you for all you have put up with over the years. And I love you, and thanks everyone for this award.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to be able to finally present you the 2020 Bert Nathan Award. Just 8 months late, but at least we still got it in 2020, so congratulations.
Thanks.
It's truly an NAC president's honor to contact the winner of the annual Mickey Warner Award and hear the response from the honoree. Charlie Gomez was no exception. Charlie, who has been an NAC member for nearly 2 decades and has held the Liberto Regional Vice President seat on NAC board for nearly the same amount of time. For those of you who don't know, Texas has always been represented on the NAC board by a Liberto or Ricos representative. Frank was an icon in the industry, and Charlie certainly has continued that tradition under the Ricos leadership of Tony Liberto. Charlie was born and raised in Austin and San Antonio, and his food service and brokerage in his bones. His father, also named Charlie, was a born salesman. In an article written by our good friend Anita Watts, Charlie said of his father, "I credit my father for any personal success because he taught me the value of people and to always be proud of what you represent. He also stressed that it doesn't cost you anything to be nice to people. My father has never met a stranger." According to lore, Charlie was hired at Ricos in 1999 by our recently deceased friend Skip Stephenson. But the truth be told, Frank Liberto was truly the man for all seasons at Ricos, and we all doubt Skip could have accomplished such a hire without the edict coming from above. Charlie is currently Vice President of Specialty Products at Ricos and has been a dedicated member and leader at NAC ever since. On behalf of all who think the world of Charlie Gomez, I have the honor of presenting the 2020 Mickey Warner Award to a true NAC leader, Charlie Gomez.
Adam, thank you. Thank you very much for those kind words. Thanks to the entire association for this prestigious award. Looks like the nomination committee got the free cheese and chips I said, so thanks, guys. I'm glad it worked out. And Dan, quickly, we want to congratulate you on your retirement and wish you the best of luck too as you enter your next chapter of life there. To all, I'm going to be a little lengthy, so I do apologize in advance. I don't know when I'll get this platform again, but I'm a salesman. And I'm very humbled to belong to this list of the past industry icons that have received this award, such as Larry Etter. And Larry, by chance as well as being a good friend of mine, was my very first theater customer. Other icons, like J.C. Evans and Dan Kroger, and of course my mentor, who Adam did mention, Frank Liberto. Frank is a very, very special place in my heart, as he introduced me to NAC and gave me opportunities on Rico's behalf to the concession industry. Frank Liberto is the father of the concession nacho, and his legacy and spirit continue to live on. We miss you, Frank, and love you. I need to thank Tony Liberto and the entire Liberto family for all the opportunities they have afforded me. Tony's a brother to me, and I'm very proud of his leadership and to the successful levels he's taken Ricos products, especially during these challenging times. I also need to mention my fellow people at Ricos Products. These are folks I work with every day. They include Megan McDermott, Kara Bogus, Ricky Robinson, Enrico Falanga, Jeremy Pallage, Dina DeMarco, and Robert Scribner. Thanks, guys, for all your efforts. Need to give a shout out to my folks, Ruth and Charles Gomez. Adam did mention my father. He was the original true salesman. Sell ice to Eskimos was the adage that accompanied him. They've given me great support and have taught me everything in my past 54 years of life. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Special thanks to the three most important people in my life now. My wife of nearly 30 years, Sonia, and my two children, Annalisa and Charlie. I love the three of you very much, and all three make me want to be a better person every day. I know it sounds corny from a movie, but I do try. At this time, this may be a little lengthy, but I need to take a few minutes to thank people in our industry that have been instrumental to me over the past 21 years. On the vendor supplier side, Tim Farha, Libby Morrow, and Jeff Scadillo, Shelley and Martin Olson, and Andrew Creeders, Brian Bean and Mike Rousey, Steve and Chris Shortino, Mike Ware, Anita Watts, and Jackie Bray. I also need to give a special thanks to a super group of customers who I'm proud to call friends. The good people at Cinemark, Philip Couch, Walter Hebert, Gary McCain, David Haywood, and Juan Cardenas. The fine people of Gold Medal includes the crew of Dan Kroger, John and Dave Evans, Joe Macaluzzo, Mike Shum, and Dave Garrettson. The guys at Regal Cinemas, John Curry, Matt Willard, and Jack Bishop, and our friends at Showbiz Cinemas, Kevin Mitchell and Rob Warnes. From the NJR people, Dennis Redmer, Josh Jensen, and Joel Kincaid, and our National Amusements friends, Bill LeClair. Congrats, Bill, on your award, by the way. Patrick Michalizzi and Dan Hurl. And our good friends at Malco Theaters, Larry Etter, and also Fred and Maggie Blank of Tri-State, Brian Newfer, Ron Kruger of Southern Theaters, Rob Lehman of Santikos, and Gary Moore and Joel Davis of Premier Cinemas. And lastly, but not least, the good people at Vistar, led by Sean Mahoney and his crew of Dave Railing, Dave Bowles, Jill King, Christine Fellner, Ann Harbison, Joe Jackson, Brian Turnquist, and Mitch Holland. Thanks, guys. The concession industry continues to amaze me. I'm in awe of all of you operators. Concession operators, you continue to show continued perseverance, ingenuity, and energy, especially during these difficult times. I'm truly amazed at the camaraderie and fellowship you show to your concession peers. And as Bill mentioned earlier, my hat is off to all of you. Again, I'm humbled and extremely grateful to NAC for this honor. And most importantly, guys, eat more nachos. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Adam. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Charlie, for everything that you do for the concessions industry and NAC. Once again, congratulations to you and to Bill. It's now my pleasure to invite NAC's President-elect, Denise DeZuter, to acknowledge our outgoing NAC directors and officers.
Thank you, Adam. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the following individuals for their service to NAC in the concession industry. Brian McMillan, outgoing NAC Treasurer. Kathy Gilman, outgoing NAC Vice President. Tony Hendricks, outgoing NAC Director. Tim Lewis, outgoing NAC Director. Martin Olson, outgoing NAC Director. Joe Joyce, outgoing NAC Regional Vice President. Thank you all for what you've accomplished, and we look forward to all of you continuing to be valued members of the NAC family.
Thank you, Denise. It is now time for the nominating committee report and the election of officers and directors that serve on the board of directors of the National Association of Concessionaires. Present the nominating committee report is NAC Chair Andrew Creeders of C. Creeders and Company.
Thank you, Adam. The nominating committee, which consisted of myself as chair, Adam Gottlieb, Jeff Scadillo, Gino DeSanto, and Ron Kruger as members, present the following recommendations for officer and director candidates. For the position of treasurer, we have Brian Bean of Pretzel House and Fun Nacho. Vice President, Tim Farha of Ferrara Candy. For Vice President, Siobhan Scalamanga of PepsiCo. Vice President, George Robb of Delaware North. Vice President, Bill LeClair of National Amusements, and congratulations, Bill. For the position of director, Chris Sorrentino of AICP. For the position of director, David Giefer of the La Crosse Center. Also for director, Greg Fender of Center Plates at Exo. Another director position, Walt Jennings of AMC Theaters. Also for director, Marianne Abiad of the Royal Corporation. And director, Charlie Gomez of Ricos Products Company. And again, congratulations to you too, Charlie. So not having any further nominations, please vote via the poll option that nominations be closed and that the secretary be directed to cast a unanimous ballot for the election of the candidates so recommended. So Chris is tallying up the scores. Looks like we're coming in. I will hold off on further election comments.
I think we're probably there.
All right.
Andrew.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Then with that, the motion is approved and I declare the nominees selected. Dan?
Hey, Dan, before you talk, I got something I want to do. I sent you an envelope. In that envelope is a little gift and just a note that I'm going to read to you so anyone here can hear what it says. Dan, on behalf of the NAC board, NAC staff, and NAC membership, I would like to thank you for a decade of tireless dedication to the National Association of Concessionaires and congratulate you on your pending retirement. Your hard work and leadership have helped to guide the NAC through good times and bad and helped NAC to make strides in both our education and government relations endeavors. When faced with an industry-wide shutdown, you're able to work with the board and the NAC staff to bring the industry together twice weekly for months, with timely discussions on how we could weather the shutdown together and emerge as an entertainment community once again ready and eager to reintroduce the joys of going to the movies, enjoying a concert, cheering on our beloved sports teams, and more together as an industry and a society. You'll be missed by the industry as a whole and individually by the friends you have made at NAC over the years. Thank you for all you have done and for preparing Chris and the rest of the staff for life after Dan. Best of luck to you and Julie as you begin the next stage of your lives, and please enjoy this gift as a well-deserved thank you from your NAC family. Keep in touch and be well. Oh, and as an added bonus, with no legal authority whatsoever to do so, as a further thank you for your years of service to the National Association of Concessionaires, I unofficially pronounce November 13th, 2020, Dan Borski Day in all households and businesses that this Zoom meeting is being streamed to. Congratulations again. And for you and everybody else out there, stay positive, but test negative.
Well, thank you, Adam, and thank you for everything you guys have done. The other day I was reminiscing about the fact that I've been in the association community for 42 years. I've had the privilege of overseeing 4 trade associations during that time and been associated with some wonderful people and wonderful efforts. In those 42 years, I think I've been in about 150 or so board meetings. And I'm proud to say that I've never missed one, missed a board meeting since 1978. However, I must admit that this is the first board meeting I've ever been associated with via Zoom. Of the 4 associations that I've headed, NAC is by far the most welcoming and friendly. It is unfortunate, but trade associations are historically very proprietary and secretive, and aren't very often willing to see the big picture. But NAC is just the opposite. This association and this community have been engaging since the first day I met the search committee at the Palmer House in Chicago back in 2011. What epitomizes the greatness of this industry has been how our members have been so willing to share their stories during our 49 reopening conference calls this year. You all have been willing to share your successes and your challenges, your highs and your lows. That is highly unusual and highly commendable. 2020 has been a difficult year, to say the least. We have all lost a friend or two along the way, including our very good friend Skip Stephenson. However, we have survived and we will continue to survive if we have something to say about it. These are challenging times for our members and for the association. There are difficult times ahead, and I hope that as we all move forward, that all of you remember that through 76 years, NAC has been here during good times and bad. Some of our best work as an association has taken place during these last 9 months. And I certainly know that the future will only be better because of the people in this organization. I certainly want to thank all the board presidents and chairs that I've been associated with in nearly a decade. Adam Gottlieb, Andrew Creeders, Terry Conlon, Jeff Scadillo, John Evans, and Ron Kruger. It's been a pleasure to have worked for you and with you. The leadership and membership of this organization, board members, committee members, and our good friend Larry Etter as Director of Education are all without comparison. I also need to thank my fellow staff members who have always gone the extra mile to be successful. You'll enjoy working with Chris Dahman. I've known Chris since 2005, and he has never let us down. He is truly a professional, and he's certainly open to your input and your suggestions. And to quote a great movie, you've chosen wisely. Barbara Aslan has been the face of this organization for nearly 17 years, and with any luck, hopefully a few more. It hasn't been easy these past few months being in a downtown Chicago office by herself, but she has been there to provide service for our members, and they certainly appreciate it. And I'm thrilled that Brenda Hamill will be giving even more of her expertise at NAC. We have worked together in 3 different associations over the years since 2003, and I know she'll give her all. But poor Julie will now have me around the house a little more often and will quickly determine if she really meant it when she said for better or for worse. These 42 years of work and 41 years of marriage would have been for naught without her and a loving family who seemed to keep moving farther and farther away. I guess we best get used to the fact that we're going to be visiting Northern California and Florida in the years ahead. Finally, it has become very trendy these days to quote Irish poets. Though I might not be Irish, Julie, our kids, and our grandsons are. William Yeats says it best. And say my glory was, I had such friends. Thank you for a wonderful 9 years, and see you at the movies.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for everything over the years, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
With no further business, I declare the 2020 annual membership meeting of the National Association of Concessionaires adjourned. Hopefully, we'll all see each other again in person in 2021 at the NAC Concessions and Hospitality Expo scheduled for Dallas, July 13th through the 16th, and CinemaCon in Las Vegas. Many thanks to Dan, Chris, Brenda, and Barbara, and all who made this week of activities for NAC such a success. Be well.
Adam,
Yes.
before everybody leaves, I have a few, I'd like to make a few comments if I could. And I also have some announcements to kind of wrap a bow around the week. But on behalf of Barbara and Brenda, Dan, I want to congratulate you on 42 years of putting people together. What a great legacy for you to have for yourself. And that is your unique gift. How do I feel about Dan? Well, I can tell you in a story. As we're preparing for this week, the top thing in my mind was I want Dan to have a cherry on the top of his career. And I just think it's that sentiment that kind of expresses how much he means to me and the staff. And I can tell you a continued driver is going to be to make you proud, Dan. So thanks for all your help over the years. Thanks for your leadership, and thanks for your friendship. As far as NAC is concerned, we all know the playing field continues to shift under our feet, but Brenda, Barbara, and myself, we're planning to prepare for that by being responsive and applying some ingenuity to continue to give you all the members great value. The ways we do that might change, as we've seen this week, as we've seen with Dan's reopening phone call series, and as we've seen, as Larry mentioned, by employing podcast. What comes next? We'll be engaging with you on that, and we really encourage you to continue to engage with us. Let's keep that line of communications open, no matter how tough things get out there. They're also tough for us. In the short term, a video of all this week is going to be provided. We'll start releasing those next week, and you can go to the ReTreat page on the NAC website for that. Very shortly, Larry mentioned this before, the winter spring CCM class will be launched. And all of our updates, stay tuned, naconline.org, social media, and we'll be throwing out some constant contact too. Now, I've got some important business to get to. I'll remind you, and I just did, we're going to have recordings of these sessions available on naconline.org. I'll continue to keep encouraging you to get out there. We'll keep this open for as long as we can. Get out there and do your virtual fun run or walk. Submit a selfie to us, and we will send you, the first 30 will get a beach towel from Promotion in Motion. And I know Adam went out for his run this morning, so we really appreciate that.
It was a very leisurely walk.
All right. Also, on the Retreat Week page, we've got great venue tours of Lacrosse Center, a really great walk around there, a highlight of AT&T Stadium. We've got a very unique tour tool of the Tivoli Theater in Chicago, and then what I would call a sizzle reel of the Amway Center in Orlando. Also, we have Episode 3, as Larry mentioned, of Laboring with a Multi-Generational Workforce podcast. The first 2 episodes are also there. They've enjoyed over 260 listens. And we just launched episode 3, and then episode 4 will be coming up very, very shortly. And then also Dan did a really great webinar with some industry experts on sharpening up your resume and sharpening up some of your job seeking skills, as unfortunately some of our members and friends have been displaced by the situation this year. Now, some very important business. We've got some door prizes to still give away. We've given away, and I want to thank all of our supplier members who were so generous in donating prizes just to give away. They've proved to be very popular, and certainly appreciate that as we go forward. But the winner of a bicycle from New Belgium is Loretta Thomas of CMX Cinemas. A winner of a touchless butter dispenser courtesy of Gold Medal Products will be Ray Robertson of Tri-Stone Cinemas. And finally, our final door prize of the week, the Highclere Gin, the limited edition display box with a bottle of gin with a $500 value, courtesy of Highclere Spirits. And the winner of that is Rob Lehman of Santikos Entertainment. All right, so with that being said, I just wanted to remind you that it's been a pleasure to bring Retreat Week to you. You've been watching Retreat Week, brought to you by NAC, where food meets fun. Have a great day, everybody, and happy holidays to you. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.